Silent Revenge. They told me I wouldn't amount to anything, and for one Christmas, they made sure I had nowhere to go. My name is Leo, and this is the story of the Christmas I spent completely alone, and how that profound loneliness became the fuel for a revenge so quiet, so complete, that it changed the entire trajectory of my life. This isn't a story about a loud, dramatic confrontation. This is a story about the power of silent success. This is about building your own table when you told there is no room for you. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, the middle child of 3. My older brother Mark was the golden child, the football star, the one with the easy charm, the one who could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. My younger sister, Chloe, was the baby, the princess, forever doted on and protected. And then there was me, the quiet one, the one with his head always in a book, the one who preferred sketching building designs on graph paper to throwing a football in the backyard. I was the question mark, the awkward piece of the puzzle that never quite fit. My parents weren't overtly cruel, they weren't monsters. Their dismissal was far more subtle, and in many ways, far more damaging. It was in the way my father's eyes would glaze over when I tried to explain a complex math problem I solved. It was in the way my mother would sigh and say, "Why can't you be more like your brother?" when I struggled to make small talk at family gatherings. My achievements were met with a polite, "That's nice, dear," while Mark's slightest accomplishment was celebrated with a backyard barbecue. I got a perfect score on my SATs. My parents ordered a pizza. Mark made a single touchdown in a game they'd already lost. They took him out for steak. It was a constant, quiet erosion of my self-worth. I learned to make myself small, to not make waves, to understand that in the ecosystem of my family, I was a supporting character in someone else's story. The one thing I had was my mind. I was obsessed with architecture and business. While other kids were playing video games, I was reading biographies of hotel magnates like Conrad Hilton and Caesar Ritz. I was fascinated by the idea of creating a place, an experience, a temporary home for people. I'd design elaborate hotel floor plans, create business models, and dream of a chain of boutique hotels that felt like a sanctuary. My family, of course, thought it was a silly fantasy. A pipe dream, my father called it. Why don't you get a real job, like your brother at the plant? It's steady work. Mark had gotten a job at the local manufacturing plant straight out of high school, and to my parents that was the pinnacle of success. A stable, blue-collar job with a good union. My dreams of entrepreneurship were seen as arrogant, delusional. I worked my way through college, taking on massive student debt while my parents helped Mark with a down payment on a house and paid for Chloe's wedding. When I graduated with a degree in business and hospitality, I didn't get a, "We're so proud of you." I got a, "Well, hopefully that expensive piece of paper pays off." I moved to the city, worked 3 jobs, lived in a shoebox apartment, and saved every single penny. I spent my 20s in a blur of 80-hour weeks. I was a bellhop, a front desk clerk, a night auditor, a concierge. I learned the hotel business from the ground up. I saw what guests truly valued, what made their stay memorable, what made them come back. And all the while I was refining my business plan, my designs, my vision for the Aura Collection, a small chain of hotels that prioritized peace, minimalist design, and hyper-personalized service. It was during this time that I met Elena. She was a brilliant, kind-hearted interior designer who saw the passion in my eyes when I talked about my dreams. She didn't see a delusional dreamer, she saw a visionary. She became my partner in every sense of the word, in life and, eventually, in business. She believed in me when no one else did. She was the family I chose. We got married in a small courthouse ceremony. We didn't invite my family. It wasn't out of malice. We just knew they wouldn't understand. They would have questioned the cost, compared it to Chloe's lavish wedding, and found it lacking. We sent a card, and my mother called to say she was hurt. We didn't have a real wedding. But the conversation was brief and awkward. For years, Elena and I scraped and sacrificed. We ate ramen noodles for dinner. We didn't take vacations. We poured every cent into our dream. We finally managed to secure a loan, a massive, terrifying, soul-crushing amount of debt, to buy a dilapidated old building in a up-and-coming neighborhood and transform it into our first hotel, Aura 1. The months of renovation were hell. We were there every day, painting, sanding, arguing with contractors, and holding each other when the stress felt like it would break us. But opening day was magic. Seeing our vision come to life, watching the first guests walk in with that look of wonder on their faces, it was the culmination of a decade of struggle. We had done it. The reviews were stellar. Travel blogs picked us up. We were booked solid for months in advance. The success of Aura 1 allowed us to secure funding for Aura 2. Then Aura 3. Within 5 years, the Aura collection was a name synonymous with luxury and tranquility. We had 12 properties across the country. We were featured in magazines. I went from being Leo, the quiet, awkward kid, to Leo, the hospitality innovator. The money was life-changing, but it wasn't about the money. It was about the validation of a dream D carried since I was a boy sketching in his bedroom. It was about proving to myself that I wasn't the worthless, forgettable son my family had made me feel I was. Throughout all of this, my relationship with my family remained cordial, distant. I'd call on birthdays and holidays. The conversations were always the same, superficial. They'd ask about the weather, about Elena, but never about the business. It was as if my success was an embarrassing topic, a fact that disrupted their narrative of me as the failure. They were proud of Mark for his promotion to shift supervisor. They were proud of Chloe for her 2 beautiful children. My creation of a multi-million-dollar company from nothing was met with a change of subject. Then came the Christmas. It was the year we opened Aura 6. Elena and I were exhausted but exhilarated. We decided, for the first time in years, to try and spend the holidays with my family. We wanted to bridge the gap. Maybe now, with tangible success, they would finally see me. See us. I called my mother in early December. The conversation was stilted as usual. "Hi, Mom, it's Leo. Elena and I were thinking of coming home for Christmas this year." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could hear the television in the background. "Oh, Leo," she said, her voice hesitant. "That's a surprise." "We'd love to see everyone," I said, trying to sound cheerful. "It's been too long." Another pause. "Well, the thing is, we've already got everything planned out. The house is just full. Mark and the kids are staying in the guest room, and Chloe and her family are taking the pull-out couch in the living room. There's just no room for you and Elena." The words hit me with a physical force. No room. I was 35 years old, a CEO, and I was being told there was no room for me at my parents' house for Christmas. We could have offered to stay at a hotel, of course. But that wasn't the point. The point was the immediate, reflexive exclusion. The point was that they hadn't even considered us. We weren't part of the plan. "I see," I said, my voice flat. "Well, maybe another time." "Yes, another time," my mother said, her voice bright with false relief. "We'll do it next year for sure. Tell Elena we said hello." I hung up the phone and just stared at the wall of my beautiful, quiet office overlooking the city. Elena came in and took one look at my face and knew. She wrapped her arms around me, and for the first time in a long time, I cried. I cried for the little boy who never felt good enough. I cried for all the years of trying and failing to earn a love that should have been unconditional. That Christmas, Elena and I didn't put up a tree. We didn't buy presents. We got on a plane and flew to a tropical island and checked into a generic, all-inclusive resort. We sat on the beach, surrounded by laughing families and couples in love, and we felt more alone than we ever had in our tiny apartment eating ramen. I looked out at the ocean, and something inside me shifted. The sadness didn't disappear, but it solidified. It turned into a core of cold, hard resolve. I was done seeking their approval. I was done hoping for a seat at their table. It was time to build my own goddamn empire, so vast and so powerful that their rejection would become a meaningless footnote in the story of my life. That was the birth of my silent revenge. It wasn't about hurting them. It was about becoming so successful that their opinion no longer held any power over me. It was about making my own family, my own world, so complete that their absence was felt not as a wound, but as a privilege I had revoked. We came back from that trip with a ferocious energy. I poured everything into the business. We expanded aggressively. We launched a new brand, Aura Reserves, which were ultra-luxury, exclusive hotels in international locations. We were no longer just a successful chain. We were becoming a powerhouse. I hired the best people. I fostered a company culture of family and respect, the exact opposite of what I had experienced growing up. My employees weren't just cogs in a machine. They were the heart of the operation, and I made sure they knew it. Years passed. The Aura collection grew to over 50 properties. We were a household name for luxury travelers. I had achieved more than I had ever dreamed possible in that small Ohio bedroom. And my family? They remained in their bubble. I'd get the occasional, obligatory text from my mother. "Hope you're well." I'd respond with a simple, "I am. Hope you are too." The conversations were dead. The connection was severed. I had truly, finally, let them go. And then, it happened. It was a Tuesday afternoon, about 10 years after that fateful Christmas call. I was in my headquarters, in a meeting with our head of acquisitions when my assistant, Sarah, buzzed my phone. Her voice was strange. "Leo, I have a Mr. and Mrs. Evans on the line. They say they're your parents. They're insisting it's urgent." My blood ran cold. Mr. and Mrs. Evans. They hadn't called me at my office. Ever. My first thought was that someone had died. A car accident. Something terrible. "Put them through," I said, my voice tight. I nodded to my head of acquisitions, who quietly left the room. "Leo?" It was my father's voice. It sounded old and shaky. A voice I barely recognized. "Dad? What's wrong? Is everything okay?" "Well, no, son. Not really." He cleared his throat. "It's about the 60th anniversary." I was confused. "Whose anniversary?" "Your mother and me," he said, a note of impatience creeping into his tone. "It's in 3 weeks. It's a big deal. The diamond anniversary." "Oh," I said, my body relaxing. This wasn't an emergency. This was something else. "Congratulations. We want to do it right," he continued. "We've invited everyone. All the family, old friends from the neighborhood, even some of my old buddies from the plant. It's going to be a huge party." "That sounds nice," I said, my guard firmly back up. "We need a place to have it," he said, getting to the point. "And we need a place for people to stay. Mark said we should look at this new, fancy hotel chain that's supposed to be the best. The Aura something." I felt the world slow down. A strange, calm smile touched my lips. "The Aura collection," I said, my voice perfectly even. "Yes, that's the one," my father said, his voice brightening. "But it's a nightmare, Leo. A complete nightmare. We called the one in the city, the flagship one. Aura 1, I think. They're fully booked. Something about a big convention. They said they don't have a single room. Not one. For the party or for the guests." I leaned back in my chair, looking out at the skyline. The universe, it seemed, had a wicked sense of humor. "I see," I said. "So, your plan for your diamond anniversary is currently without a room." "Exactly," my father exclaimed, frustration evident. "And your mother is having a fit. This is the most important event of our lives. It has to be perfect. Mark said this Aura place is the only place that's good enough. He said it's where all the celebrities stay." I let the silence hang in the air for a moment, letting the irony sink in. Mark, the golden child, had unknowingly guided them right to my doorstep. "So," my father said, his voice taking on a pleading tone I had never, ever heard before. "We were wondering, you're a big shot in the city, right? In business. You must know people. Do you think, could you pull some strings? Could you call someone for us? Maybe get us a room? Your mother, she's just so upset." There it was. The begging. The moment I had never consciously fantasized about, but which now felt like the most natural, inevitable conclusion to my story. They were begging me for a room in the empire they had told me I would never build. They were begging the son they had told there was no room for. I took a deep, slow breath. The anger was gone. The hurt was gone. All that was left was a profound, almost peaceful sense of power. "Dad," I said, my voice calm and clear, "you don't need to call anyone else." "What do you mean?" "The Aura collection," I said. "It's mine. I built it. Elena and I. It's our company." The silence on the other end of the phone was absolute. It was so deep and so long I thought the line had gone dead. I could almost hear the gears grinding to a halt in my father's mind. The rewriting of history, the re-evaluation of every snide comment, every dismissive sigh, every time they told me to get a real job. You what?" he finally stammered. "The Aura Collection is my company," I repeated, slowly and deliberately. "I am the CEO and founder. I built the first hotel with Elena after you told me there was no room for me at Christmas." Another crushing silence. I could hear my mother whispering frantically in the background. "Leo, son, we had no idea," my father finally whispered, his voice thin and weak. "Of course you didn't," I said, not with malice but with simple factual finality. "You never asked." I let that truth hang in the air between us, a truth that spanned decades. "Now," I said, my tone shifting to that of a professional CEO, "regarding your anniversary, the Aura One is indeed fully booked. It's our most sought-after property. However, as the owner, I do have the authority to make certain accommodations." I could feel the hope surging back through the phone line. You can get us in?" my father asked, his voice trembling. "I can," I said, "but it won't be at Aura One. I have a new property, Aura Reserve, opening next week. It's not even on the public booking site yet. It's our most exclusive, most luxurious brand to date. I can reserve the entire grand ballroom for your party, and I can block out 20 suites for your family and guests." "Oh, Leo, thank you, thank you." My mother's voice suddenly came on the line, choked with tears. "I knew you would come through. I always knew you were special." The hypocrisy was so breathtaking, it was almost beautiful. "There is, of course, the matter of the cost," I continued, my voice cool and professional. "The standard rate for the Aura Reserve Grand Ballroom is $35,000 for an evening. The suites start at $2,000 per night. Given the circumstances and the fact that you are family, I am prepared to offer you my family discount." I paused, letting them absorb the numbers. I heard a sharp intake of breath. The family discount?" my father repeated. "Yes," I said. "The total, with the discount applied, will be $40,000. Payable in full, 2 weeks in advance. I'll have my events director send over the contract." The silence returned. $40,000. For them, it was an unimaginable fortune. It was more than my father had probably made in a year at the plant. It was the physical, monetary representation of the canyon that now existed between us. They couldn't afford me. They couldn't afford a room in my world, just like they had decided I didn't deserve a room in theirs. "Leo, we can't," my father stammered. "That's the offer, Dad," I said, my voice gentle but firm. "Take it or leave it." I wasn't doing this for the money. I was doing it to make them see, truly see, the scale of what they had dismissed. I was holding up a mirror to their own smallness. There was more whispering, frantic and desperate. I heard my mother sob, "But we have to. What will we tell everyone?" Finally, my father came back on the line, his voice defeated, broken. We We'll find the money, Leo. We'll take it." "Good," I said. "The contract will be emailed to you within the hour. My director will be in touch. Congratulations again on your anniversary." I hung up the phone. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vengeful. I felt quiet. I felt a chapter of my life, a heavy, burdensome chapter, finally close. The revenge was complete. It was silent. It was clean. It wasn't about denying them. It was about them having to acknowledge my success on my terms, from a position of supplication. They had to come to me, they had to beg, and they had to pay for the privilege. The anniversary party happened. Elena and I did not attend. We were, ironically, opening another new property on the other side of the world. But I saw the pictures. My events director sent me a few. My parents looking small and overwhelmed in the stunning palatial grandeur of the Aura Reserve ballroom. My brother Mark, in a cheap suit, staring around with a look of stunned disbelief. They got their perfect party in the perfect place. But they knew. Everyone in that room knew. The story had gotten out, as small-town stories do. They knew they were guests in their youngest son's kingdom, a son they had forgotten to invite home for Christmas. That was the real revenge. The silent knowledge that permeated the entire event. The knowledge that the quiet, awkward boy they had written off had built the very walls around them. My story isn't really about a hotel chain. It's about self-worth. It's about taking the pain of rejection and using it as the bedrock for your own palace. For anyone watching this who has ever been told you're not good enough, who has ever been made to feel like there's no room for you at the table, I want you to hear this. Your revenge is not in the confrontation. Your revenge is in the creation. Build your own hotel. Write your own book. Start your own company. Create your own art. Forge your own family, whether by blood or by choice. Become so brilliant at what you do that the people who doubted you have no choice but to see your light, even if it's from a distance, even if they have to pay to step into it for a moment. Don't waste your energy on shouting. Conserve it for building. Let your success be your voice. Let your peace be your victory. The most powerful revenge is a life lived so well, so fully and so joyously that the people who hurt you become mere spectators to your glory. They told me there was no room for me, so I built an empire of rooms, and in the end, they had to beg for just one.